For those of you that aren't aware, 2 days ago, Nikita actually did a TarkovTV podcast answering some questions about the state of Tarkov and the direction that it's taking. In this podcast, there was a lot of amazing information that they talked about the future of Tarkov, and a lot of questions from the community that I found really interesting. So today we're going to compile all of that information into a short type package. Enjoy.
Hello everybody.
So we actually started talking about 12.12 being the next patch. And one of the first things he said is that he stated that the art department is currently working on the Lighthouse location. They want to provide this location for 4 streets. Lighthouse will potentially have up to 2 bosses. And I'm assuming it's also going to have a Lighthouse Keeper boss of some sort. This is probably why they were testing the heavy fog conditions during the 12.10 pre-wipe event. So I'm assuming that this was getting ready for the heavy weather effects that Lighthouse is actually going to have. Later in the podcast, he also stated that there will be a special trader on the Lighthouse location, and he or she will be physically based there, making this actually the first physically based trader in Escape from Tarkov, something that they've talked about for some amount of time. He then went on to add he or she would be very hard to access as it would be protected by a sniper, and you will still need to do a lot of different things to access the trader. He didn't go on to say what is required to get to the trader and what the trader sells, but I have a gut feeling that the trader might sell some rare ammos, non-lethal weapons, extremely rare weapons, or maybe the introduction of camos. Continuing on from the 12.12 update, Nikita then apologized for not adding the FN SCAR, as he felt like a lot of the community was disappointed. He did promise, though, that the FN SCAR H will be coming with the introduction of the next update, 12.12. There was still no mention of the USP, however, I assume they plan to add it in 12.12, just like the SCAR H. During a conversation about some more insanely rare guns, the topic of the AN-94 was brought up, to which he said it would be possible in future for you to find one as an extremely rare collector gun, which would be really awesome. So a lot of these different late game guns in Tarkov may be extremely rare when they add them. As for Unity 2019, he confirmed that they are currently in the migration process and the process is going. So, which means they're working on it, which will be awesome. They're going to be premiering it on the ETS servers hopefully soon, so we'll have some more info on them a little bit later. Nikita expects that this will give them the ability to optimize the game a lot better and have better networking, making development easier. In terms of a graphic overhaul, here's what Nikita wants to change with Unity 2019. They're going to be looking at lighting, shadows, materials, fog effects to make it more realistic, vegetation, indoor lighting, and everything related to atmospheric lighting, shadows, and vegetation. This is amazing because I feel like one of the things Tarkov doesn't quite get right is some of the indoor lighting, so I would like to see a rework of this in the future. On the topic of Unity 2019, Nikita then was asked about DLSS, to which he responded, "We are working with NVIDIA, but ultimately it is up to them." To clarify this, I actually reached out to NVIDIA rep myself and confirmed to me that DLSS is actually natively supported in the Unity 2020 engine, but however, it is still possible to be added in 2019. They are working closely with BattleStateGames and also Face Punch, the Rust developers, which is also based on the Unity engine, to add DLSS hopefully native to 2019. He also briefly spoke about Reflex and that he was really happy that the entire community was around Reflex and really appreciative of the feature. Another great feature mentioned with the introduction to 12.12, Nikita said INERTIA is coming. This is going to be a change up of the movement system. If you're not sure what inertia is, it just simply means it's going to take you a little bit of time to change direction and also build up speed instead of being instantly able to change from left movement to right movement and so on and so forth by the movement of your legs and then the actual move to each side with all of that heavy gear slowing you down. This is going to change the way Tarkov plays and feels drastically. So I'm very excited to see how they implement this, and I hope that they implement it correctly. Nikita then also touched on player SCAV karma, and he talked about some of the difficulties in implementing this system. Unfortunately, he said, not every method for gaining SCAV karma is used right now in terms of leveling up your SCAV karma. We have so much more to discover, and that he is aware of a lot of the bugs when coming to gaining and receiving karma. They are currently working to iron out some of the issues and rebalance what's being tested. But he wants to point out that a lot of it will change, whether the amount you lose when you kill a scav has already changed to 0.05 instead of 0.02. A lot of sneaky changes behind the scenes will continue to happen until they are happy with the state of scav karma. He then wanted to point out and reiterate that this is the first version of scav karma and will continue to change for some time. On the topic of scav karma, he also answered a question talking about the possibility of adding daily or weekly quests for fence reps, and to which he responded that it wasn't a bad idea. He wants to add more cooperative extracts in the hope that we can encourage more cooperation between scavs and PMCs as well, which is a really good direction to go, as I feel like the scav karma system has really made some unique encounters. So one of the questions Nikita was asked was on the topic of RECOIL, which I found personally interesting because RECOIL is something that I feel like has some love to be had in Tarkov. And one of the questions here nailed it. Why is burst not effective in Tarkov essentially? And why do I feel like I have to full auto if I want to go kill someone anyway because of the insane kick of burst? I don't think Nikita quite understood the question, because his response here says, the whole recoil system in Tarkov is settled, but will be tweaked to be more unique. He said he will not change the basic recoil system, but just to tweak it to match a more realistic spread. But I hope the devs in future do reduce the recoil of the burst option. On the topic of the flea market, a lot of people were asking about the level 20 changes and whether they were permanent, and some suggestions for the flea market in the future. He actually started off by mentioning that the limitation of the flea to level 20 wasn't put in place to punish casual players, but instead to extend the early wipe period, as he feels like this is one of his most enjoyed periods in the game. And I also actually tend to agree with this sentiment, as I personally also love early game Tarkov, and this patch has felt really good. Obviously, some changes like adding more barters and quest keys to the different traders will help with some of the progression without completely punishing new players. I hope that they do add some things that you can do in the future to gain some of these quest keys, or simply just increase the spawns. Nikita went on to say that the flea market makes the game easier, and he's not actually opposed to making the game easier, he's actually just opposed to when it's accessed. He then went on to say he is, however, against elements of the game being accessible too early on. Nikita was asked a lot of questions about the flea market after this point, but I'm going to bring up two that I found really interesting. The first question was about reducing the requirement for the flea market mid-wipe to make it easier for players starting later in the wipe, to which he responded, "It is questionable," while shaking his head. It didn't seem like he was keen on changing the requirement anytime soon in terms of level. He did, however, say that they will be adding a link search or a filter by item feature for traders only before you unlock the flea market. This is really awesome because it'll allow you to navigate the menus and also build guns a lot more efficiently without being level 20. A personal criticism of mine was to actually add this, and the fact that they even brought it up and said that they're working on it is amazing. It shows me that they're listening and they also know what we need. In regards to the level requirement, they actually may be abolishing the level requirement for the flea, but not anytime soon. One of the questions actually brought up the fact that someone thinks that you should be able to build something in your hideout to access your flea, whether that be a computer or the internet or anything like that, to connect to the flea market. To which Nikita responded that they had already been looking at a similar idea and that he appreciates the idea and will consider it. Hopefully having something that you can build in your hideout, like a physical computer that you can connect to the flea market, will be really awesome. Or maybe the existing level 1 intel center anyway. In terms of some of the changes, he was appreciating the community feedback around reducing the scav junk box level, and agreed with a lot of the community suggestions about making a lot of the stash bigger for the standard editions, as well as the fact that he was appreciating that people were liking the sorting table and other things like that. I think Nikita doesn't want people to struggle with items endlessly. He also brought up that they are also working on the ability to partially turn in items for hideout upgrades, which means if you need 4 corrugated hose, you can actually hand in 3 and then come back for the 4th later on. These are just more changes that show me that Nikita wants to continue to make the experience in Tarkov not a Tetris simulator as much as it currently is. On the topic of matching times, Nikita actually ended up bringing up the servers and talked about how the matching times are actually incredibly long right now. But he said it's actually due to the fact that they broke one of their concurrent player records and a whopping 250,000 concurrent players, which is absolutely nuts. They are actually currently working to upgrade the servers. However, it is restricted by the speed at which their server providers can actually upgrade, as they are mostly working with max capacity at the moment. He said the servers are one of their highest priorities and that they are working to improve them as much as possible. On the topic of secure containers and the pre-wipe event affecting them, Nikita said the rage of the EOD users if they lose something to their containers will lead to many complaints. He added that they do want to add some unique containers, however, with some kind of restrictions, such as barter-only items or use-only items. They'll need to determine the uniqueness of each container, but as for now, no changes will take place to the containers in the foreseeable future. This opens up a complete different box of worms when it comes to different options here, as they can have things like a larger than a camper container that can only take meds, or only take meds and keys and other things like this. I really hope that they do continue to experiment with the different options. I would love to see what they add and to balance them correctly. As for future content, once again, he actually finally touched on what their map structure is and what they're looking at doing. What I found really interesting is that Lighthouse is going to be the next map. And then after Lighthouse, they will be adding Streets of Tarkov and then working on their final map, Terminal. It seems they want to have all of the mechanics in the game, such as radiation and blood pressure, before the release of 1.0, and that Terminal will be the last map before the DLC maps. The DLC maps after that will continue on, such as Suburbs, and they're going to be extending the map and adding things like a SCAV Life DLC and others that they've talked about in podcasts before. This is really awesome to me, and I really am excited for Lighthouse. I feel like Lighthouse is going to be a great map with the first physical trader. Hopefully the trader is worth visiting and has some sick gear, because I'm excited for some sick gear. Maybe the introduction of camos, just maybe, we'll see. I'm really excited about that as well. Nikita then mentioned before closing up the stream that a lot of different members of the BattleStateGames team contracted COVID-19 recently, and that has been a very big difficulty for the team. I can't speak for you guys, but I wish the team at BattleStateGames a speedy recovery, and hopefully things go back to working like normal, or if they have the ability to work from home, that everything gets sorted out so we can get some of the sweet content as fast as they physically can. But then again, guys, they are human. This patch currently, 12.11, has been a lot of fun, so I wouldn't expect to see much on 12.12 for some amount of time anyway. But how are you guys enjoying the patch? Let me know in the comments down below how you guys are enjoying 12.11, or let me know some of the things you're excited for in the upcoming 12.12 patch. I hope the community continues to harass them about the AEK or the AN94, as I want some more awesome AKs to be up there with the best of us in the NATO world. I appreciate you guys chilling to the very end. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe. And as always, we'll see you on the next one. Oh my god, my English. Blah, blah, blah.